Hello, I'm Michelle Powers, and you are watching a special edition of Current News. 3, 2, 1, the communion countdown is almost over. Churches are about to celebrate masses again. What priests are doing to meet you in the pews. It's all part of New York's reopening. But one woman says she has no plans to leave quarantine for the rest of her life. She's taken a vow. And scammers, they've taken advantage of this pandemic, and their eyes are set on parishioners. Be aware, we have the warnings. Plus, protesters have their eyes on statues. They're toppling down, even one of a Catholic saint. And a personal parish, it's going up in Pittsburgh to minister to Black Catholics. That's all ahead of you on Current News, Special Edition. The countdown is nearly over and the doors are almost open. Daily masses will be celebrated again in the Diocese of Brooklyn this Monday. Right now, priests are getting their parishes ready before welcoming you into the pews. Current News' Emily Drewby has that story from Bell Harbor, Queens.
A daily tradition, Anne-Marie McNerney says the rosary at St. Francis de Sales Church, a way to strengthen her faith while not being able to attend Mass. But on Monday, June 29th, that will change.
I can't wait.
That's when churches in the Diocese of Brooklyn can reopen for weekday Mass. Weekend Mass will start that Saturday with the Vigil Mass on July 4th. McNerney, who has been a parishioner of the Bell Harbor Queens Church for 55 years, was emotional as she thought of receiving communion for the first time since March.
It's going to feel like we're our first Holy Communion, really. It will be.
Her pastor, Father William Sweeney, is excited to welcome back his flock, but also a little nervous.
Being back in the church will be good. We'll be interested to see how many people come. A lot of our senior citizens have already said they're going to wait a little bit.
The diocese has put strict safety measures into place, including limiting church capacity to 25% and requiring masks. In Coney Island, the Shrine Church of Our Lady of Solace has made their own branded masks, a way to get their people ready for Mass, but also reinforce their church community.
You go outside wearing a mask and you belong to Our Lady of Solace. This is your parish. This is your family.
They already sold 50. Parishioners can buy them for $6 at the rectory. They cost almost that much to make.
Every other day, it seems, they ask me, when are you opening again? So I'm happy to finally have an answer.
Father James Rodriguez is the administrator of St. Rose of Lima Church in Rockaway Beach, Queens. He says his parishioners are excited to come back. However, even though they're also following strict safety restrictions, some are still fearful. So for now, they will continue to also live stream.
For the people who can't come or the people who would rather not come, people who choose to exercise that type of caution.
Every church is different, so it's important people check with their parish about their Mass schedule and safety precautions.
The churches on Monday will be full of Purell bottles, masks, pew separators, but they'll also be full of love, hope, and faith. In Bell Harbor, Queens, Emily Drewby, Current News.
The Big Apple is in the midst of its broadest reopening yet. New Yorkers can now go back to work, but many aren't. Meet one woman who says she's ready to go back to Mass, but other than that, she has no plans to leave her home. She's taken a vow. New York City is reopening, but one woman is choosing to remain in quarantine for the rest of her life.
The enclosure was some kind of a draw that I can't really explain.
The governor's stay-at-home order has nothing to do with it. It hasn't been only 100 days.
Now, and at the hour of our death.
For her, it's been decades.
Took one last trip to Jones Beach and said, I will never be here again. And in fact, I have never been there again.
Sister Susan Marie is a cloistered nun, and her confinement mirrors Americans today. Just outside these 20-foot walls is the heart of the pandemic, Brooklyn, New York, where people only leave their homes for necessities. But the outside world isn't something she misses. It's just something she remembers.
There was a time when the Superior, in my early days, sent me out for something. I don't remember what it was, but I had to go down 86th Street. And I passed a pizza parlor, a hair salon, and I remember saying, oh, I haven't smelled that in a long time. Oh, I haven't smelled that in a long time. So there was some kind of a nostalgia happening.
Her order, the Visitation of the Holy Mary, have been living apart from the secular world since the 17th century. She joined the order in Bay Ridge when she was 36, having already lived a life working for years at NBC.
Said little goodbyes along the way to certain kinds of activities.
But the life Sister Susan Marie left behind outside these walls doesn't compare, she says, to what she found inside. They follow a strict routine each day, rising early to pray, work, meditate. They share a meal and silence together.
Silence is very, very nourishing because in the silence, the Lord does speak.
Silence, not something found by many Americans in the last 3 months. Right now, a perfect storm of civil unrest brewing, fueled by George Floyd's death at the hands of police, racism, the coronavirus crisis, and massive unemployment.
Hail Mary, full of grace.
But Sister says the conditions don't have to be perfect to hear God.
But you can express that anger to God too. He's going to hear it.
Sister Susan Marie said something mystical is happening right now.
The whole world, every person almost, you might say, is united, truly united on the same cross of Christ right now.
Not everyone is taking Sister Susan Marie's advice and using this time to clear their minds and find God. Instead, scammers are taking advantage of the current coronavirus crisis. You need to be on guard because they have their eyes on parishioners in the Diocese of Brooklyn. Current News' Emily Drewby has that story from Howard Beach, Queens.
I need a favor from you.
Father Joseph Jude Gannon is reading a text message sent to his parishioner. The texter uses the priest's name, but it's not from him. It's from a scammer.
Oh, it's disgusting that they're using my name and they're using the church's good name to be able to do their nefarious deeds.
At least 4 of his parishioners have gotten this text. The Shrine Church of St. Gerard Majella, the latest target of a message scam, where the scammer or scammers pose as a pastor and ask parishioners for money. Last May, a similar scam targeted other Catholics in the Diocese of Brooklyn. At one point, they even posed as Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio. Now the scam is back, and this time the texts say the donations will help patients battling the coronavirus. Denise Das's family was on the receiving end.
They really push you. They make you feel very, oh my God, I need to do it right now. That's very dangerous. And it keeps calling me all Sunday until I blocked because it keeps saying, oh, I need it right now.
Das knows Father Gannon's number and realized it was a scam right away. But she says she could see how somebody could be victimized. Would you ever text one of your parishioners asking for money?
Absolutely not. That's not the normal way we would do that. We would have a personal conversation with them.
This scammer also hit at least 3 parishioners at St. Helen's Church in Howard Beach, Queens.
I'm feeling disheartened by this because there are people who are trolling our information online and then taking advantage of our parishioners.
Maria Scaramazino recently received a text. She was also targeted back in 2019. Luckily, she didn't give money. Unfortunately, some have.
You're taking advantage of people who are faith-based, who, are going to help their priest.
The texts have also popped up at Holy Family in Fresh Meadows, Queens. If you or somebody that you know receives one of these text messages, the best thing to do is to report it to the police and to your pastor. In Howard Beach, Queens, Emily Drewby, Currents News.
Nationally, an important story is brewing that Catholics need to know about. The Supreme Court is expected to rule soon on a landmark abortion case any day now. Current News' Christine Persichetti tells us it could limit a woman's access to abortion.
Pro-life advocates have rallied many times for the rights of the unborn. They're now keeping a close watch on the Supreme Court as justices get ready to issue a major ruling on abortion. The case centers on a Louisiana state law that requires doctors who perform abortions to have admitting privileges at area hospitals. This anticipated ruling comes after 2 recent decisions by the conservative-leaning court, which many say were setbacks for the Trump administration. The first last Monday, when the High Court ruled that the 1964 Civil Rights Act protects gay, lesbian, and transgender employees from discrimination based on sex. Justice Neil Gorsuch, who President Trump appointed, wrote the majority opinion. Days later, the Supreme Court decided the Trump administration's action to kill DACA didn't follow the rules. Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, or DACA, is a program that allows those who were brought to the U.S. as children to remain here without fear of deportation. There are about 700,000 so-called dreamers who are protected by it. Both decisions stunned President Trump, who tweeted last week, "These horrible and politically charged decisions coming out of the Supreme Court are shotgun blasts into the face of people that are proud to call themselves Republicans or conservatives. We need more justices, or we will lose our Second Amendment and everything else. Vote Trump 2020. Christine Persichetti, Currents News.
There's a lot more news headed your way. A saint comes toppling down. Protesters say statues shouldn't be erected for the man Pope Francis canonized. And could Columbus Circle be next? Italians are speaking out to protect the explorer. Plus fireworks, you're hearing them at home, but some aren't looking up at the sky. They're taking cover. Statues are toppling across the country, but the latest to be pulled down by protesters is a saint. The monument to missionary Saint Junipero Serra was toppled by a group of about 100 people in San Francisco. He founded 9 Catholic missions in California. Critics have called the saint a symbol of colonialism. Defenders say Serra was a champion of the human rights of Native people. Pope Francis canonized him while visiting the U.S. in 2015. San Francisco's Archbishop Salvatore Cordileone is condemning the destruction of the statue. He's released a statement that says, "What is happening to our society? A renewed national movement to heal memories and correct the injustices of racism and police brutality in our country has been hijacked by some into a movement of violence, looting, and vandalism. The memorialization of historic figures merits an honest and fair discussion as to who and to whom such honor should be given. But here, there was not rational discussion. It was mob rule, a troubling phenomenon that seems to be repeating itself throughout the country." As the Archbishop points out, St. Serra isn't the only one. Statues that have stood for years are crashing down. Next to being removed, the Theodore Roosevelt statue outside New York City's Museum of Natural History. Many wondering, could Columbus Circle be next? Here to talk with us is Andre Domino from the Italian-American One Voice Coalition. Currents News' Christine Persichetti asked him how he feels seeing Columbus teared down.
Just horrible and heart-wrenching, actually, to see these things occurring across the country.
Now, according to History.com, Columbus kept a journal, which you probably know about. He gave to Spain's Queen Isabella, in which he wrote about the locals he encountered. And he said, quote, "They would make fine servants. With 50 men, we could subjugate them all and make them do whatever we want." He even offered her some 500 slaves, which she rejected. How do you respond to people who say Christopher Columbus was an oppressor, enslaved people, and committed violent acts and even genocide against indigenous people?
Well, people can have their own opinions, but they can't have their own facts. And in fact, a lot of these facts have been disputed by reputable sources and authorities in the area. In fact, even some indigenous people who've written books correcting these facts are there to say that, you know, some of these words are incorrect. For example, the one that you cited, the word servants, was actually for servants of God at the time. It was not the word that we use for servants now. So there's a lot of misinterpretation, and unfortunately they've twisted the facts to attack Columbus and Western culture.
Wow. Why do Italians revere Christopher Columbus so much? Why not other important and less controversial Italians like St. Thomas Aquinas, Galileo? You can name so many of them.
Well, throughout history, Italian Americans were subjected to significant discrimination, and even the largest lynching in America was of Italian Americans. And as part of the atonement or apology for that, President Harrison, Benjamin Harrison, as well as Roosevelt, used Columbus and Columbus statues as a way to apologize for that discrimination and hate that was towards Italian Americans. So it's an important symbol for generations of Italian Americans regarding the fight to survive here in America.
You mentioned lynchings, and many people might be taken aback when you use that word talking about Italians because, you know, as we all know, it's African Americans who probably suffered more lynchings than anyone else.
Of course, there's no comparison with African Americans, but we can't hide the fact that Italian Americans were also lynched. Again, the largest lynching in America was in New Orleans in 1891, and it was just last year that the mayor of New Orleans apologized to the Italian American community for that lynching.
All right, New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy is now considering removing Columbus statues across the state. How do you plan to fight that?
Well, we've certainly written to him. We've got petitions and so forth. And, in New Jersey, with such a high population of Italian Americans, 1 out of 6 residents of New Jersey are traced back to their Italian heritage. And really, of all states, this is not the state to do that in. And we would think that he should listen to Governor Cuomo, who said that he's going to preserve that iconic statue that's in the center of Columbus Circle, which, by the way, was donated by the nickels and dimes of Italian Americans at the time.
That was Andre Domino from the Italian American One Voice Coalition. Just a note here, in 2018, the statue of Christopher Columbus in Manhattan was listed on both the state and national registers of historic places, which offers protections for the statue under preservation laws. Still, there's a petition going around right now to rename Columbus Circle in Manhattan and remove the statue there. New York's Governor Andrew Cuomo is insisting the statue stay right where it is, pointing to its importance in the Italian American community. Many across New York City are also fed up with something else, those fireworks. The blasts throughout the night are leaving New Yorkers restless. But for our vets, it's something a lot worse. Currents News' Jessica Easthope has the story from Bay Ridge.
I don't always jump. Generally, I would probably say 80% of the time I do, but I always look.
Bill Miller isn't describing enemy fire during his days in combat in Vietnam. He's describing what it's like when he hears fireworks.
To be walking around, maybe going for a walk down along Shore Road at night, and fireworks are going off on a side street somewhere, it's very unnerving.
Bill and other combat veterans have felt that unnerving feeling most nights this month. In Brooklyn alone, more than 4,500 complaints have been made to 311 this month. That's 80 times the amount of calls received by the city in the first 6 months of 2019. In addition, there have been more than 125 shooting incidents in June, numbers not seen in more than 2 decades. But for Bill, he says the fireworks are different because they can happen anywhere. While many associate the loud and colorful displays with celebration, for combat veterans, the sound and smells fireworks leave behind can trigger flashbacks associated with post-traumatic stress disorder.
When you slept and all of a sudden there was a rocket attack, and that's what the fireworks is like. And basically, whenever we got a rocket attack, you always ran for cover. So that instinct stays with you.
Bill says for combat veterans, the sound of fireworks can be mentally and physically exhausting.
To run at heightened survival levels like that all the time, and it's hard on them mentally, and believe it or not, it's hard on them physically, because your muscles are tight.
There might be an end in sight for veterans like Bill with Tuesday's announcement by Mayor de Blasio on a major crackdown on illegal fireworks and the formation of a task force involving the Sheriff's Office, NYPD, and FDNY.
This is a beginning. There's a lot to do, and we have to do it quickly.
In Bay Ridge, Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
Still to come on Currents News, a parish a long time in the making, one that will minister specifically to Black Catholics come this July. Plus a special thank you to a group of guys who have kept the diocese safe throughout this coronavirus crisis. It's being called a personal parish, one dedicated to specifically serve the needs of Black Catholics in Pittsburgh, named for a saint born to slaves from Africa. Set to open its doors this July. Currents News' Emily Drewby has the story.
A personal parish for Black Catholics.
Black Catholics have particular prayer needs, spiritual needs.
It's a church anyone, no matter where they live, can join. A trailblazing idea out of the Diocese of Pittsburgh. It was born from a listening session held earlier in the year. The diocese says the change is especially meaningful now as hundreds of thousands have taken to the streets with demands to stamp out the sin of racism, social unrest from coast to coast in the wake of the deaths of George Floyd, Rayshard Brooks, and others.
It's a critical time, and I hope that this is a time when we all get it, that we really do have to root out racism, which is a sin. And I'm not sure that, we've come in the past to a point of be able to empathize with our black sisters and brothers.
For the parish, the diocese chose St. Benedict the Moor Church. For 130 years, the church has had a rich history of ministering to black Catholics.
If you've had a chance to ever go to St. Benedict's to celebrate the Mass, it's full of life. And sometimes Masses can go on for quite some time, but it's expressive of the black culture.
It also sits next to Freedom Corner, a civil rights landmark.
It stands on the hill that overlooks the city. That has to be a constant reminder to us of how important black Catholics are for us as a church.
The church, named for Benedict the Moor, a 16th century saint born to African slave parents. He became a Franciscan friar. Bishop David Zubik will celebrate Mass at the church on July 12th, and it will officially become a personal parish for black Catholics the next day. In Windsor Terrace, Brooklyn, Emily Drewby, Currents News.
And this weekend, students across the Diocese of Brooklyn have a special message for Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio.
Hi, Bishop DiMarzio. Happy anniversary. Happy anniversary. Thank you and congratulations, Bishop DiMarzio.
This is what they call a virtual bouquet, or an online show of thanks and congratulations to the Bishop of Brooklyn. Bishop DiMarzio was ordained to the priesthood 50 years ago, and students from around the diocese sent him their videos to celebrate the occasion. The bishop then, in turn, has a special message to those who remembered his anniversary. Here he is.
I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the school children of the diocese for the spiritual bouquet that they gave to me. Almost every school participated with the prayers for me and so many beautiful presentations with the pictures of the children especially were very beautiful. Also, this edition of the tablet that is coming out also is full of congratulations for my 50th anniversary as a priest, and I do accept those thanks from everybody who participated.
Now remember, the Jubilee issue of the tablet also honors other priests who have hit milestone anniversaries in a special giant pull-out section. You can see it. You need to see it at thetablet.org. And that is Currents News. A reminder that next week we are going to be on hiatus ahead of the 4th of July holiday. Net TV is preparing a big lineup of must-see programs that will air while we're away. You can find the whole schedule on netny.tv. I'm Michelle Powers. Thank you for joining us, because we are putting your faith in the news. We leave you this weekend with special images of solidarity. While this pandemic has been scary and stressful to everyone involved, the strong right arm of the church, the Knights of Columbus, have been committed to helping their communities. Proof that even in the most divisive of times, we are one universal church.